Hello everybody, welcome to this tutorial on the More Madness puzzle. This is a puzzle with a jumbling only mechanism, which means each turn creates a new shape. Now let's go over the overview of the steps. First, we'll get it back into this UFO shape, then we'll solve the small corners or the polar corners. I may use both definitions. Then we'll solve the large edges, then the corners, and then we will solve the triangles by moving them to the correct side of the puzzle, and then permutating them correctly. The notation I will use consists of 4 faces: the UR face, the UL face, the DL face, and the DR face. Each turn is rotating them clockwise by 2 stops. And what I mean by 2 stops is each grip on the More Madness puzzle has 5 stops. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're gonna rotate each face 2 stops for the notation. So the notation for UR will rotate the UR face 2 stops clockwise. UR prime rotated 2 stops counterclockwise, and the same applies for every face. It should be pretty intuitive to know when each stop occurs, because you can see that the faces will align and you can turn the puzzle. Using 2 stops also gives the puzzle more mobility, because from here, after I turn this face when it's at 1 stop, there really isn't much I can do except reverse it. Without further ado, let's get into scrambling this puzzle. Alright, it looks scrambled enough, but it may take a little more fiddling if you really want a good scramble. It is quite hard to get a nice scramble on this puzzle, but we'll just start the tutorial. At times in the tutorial, I may change the case of the puzzle so that we can explore every case that we have to. So, without further ado, let's start. The first step I would do is to get the puzzle to cube shape, and a way to start doing that is by trying to get the polar corners to their correct positions. If you end up with some really random shape outside of them being in the correct positions, you might want to keep turning. Okay, that wasn't too hard, but let's explore some of the other cases you may get when you're solving the shape of the puzzle. You may get the puzzle into this sort of shape, where you have the corner flipped and a triangle next to it, and then another corner flipped and a triangle next to it. For this specific case, you would do the moves UL prime, DL prime, UL prime, UR, UL, UR. There's another one of these cases where you can get 2 of the rotated corners. You may get a similar case where we have 2 rotated corners, but they are on the same side of the puzzle. For this specific case, you can do Y, DR, UR, DR prime, DL prime, UL, DL. The puzzle bucks up at times, but it's okay. Those are the main cube shapes that you would want to have algorithms for. We should solve all of these polar edges or small edges, whatever you'd like to call them. And there are a few algorithms that can help you do this. Some of them are pretty complicated, but we will get right into them. The first algorithm that we will execute will swap this edge down here with this edge up here, and it'll swap this edge with this other edge. And the algorithm goes as such: ul prime dl dr ur prime dr prime ur ul dl dr prime dl prime dr dl prime. And you can see that swapped these two with these two edges. If you flip the cube around, you can see we've got two edges solved here, and we have a 3-cycle. We're not going to do the 3-cycle quite yet, so I'm going to show you the 3 other algorithms that we need that we can use to solve this cube here, this step. I'll show you the next one, which will swap these two here and these two, the top right and the bottom left. And that algorithm is called A, and A goes ul prime dr prime ur prime dr ur dr prime dl prime ul dl dr prime dl dr dl prime dr, and then we're going to finish off with the z2. And then you can see we have swapped these two edges with these two edges. Okay. Now, there is a mirrored version of this algorithm called AM, and as you can imagine, it'll swap these two, and it'll swap this one with this one. I'll do the algorithm, and then I'll do it again so that we can reverse it, so that we can solve this 3-cycle here. So AM goes ur dl ul dl prime ul prime dl dr ur prime dr prime dl dr prime dl prime dr dl prime, and z2. You can see it swapped these two with these two. So we're going to do that algorithm again. Essentially, it'll just do the same thing, and then we'll be ready to do that next 3-cycle. So again, for repetition, AM goes ur dl ul dl prime ul prime dl dr ur prime dr prime dl dr prime dl prime dr dl, and then we're going to finish off with z2. Now we're going to do this 3-cycle. We want to get this edge to here, and that algorithm is the reverse of the 3-cycle that we're going to do. So the 3-cycle that would cycle this edge to this edge to this edge goes a y prime a y prime a y a m y, and since a done twice does the same thing to the center edges, then we can simply reverse the order of the algorithm. The cycle that we'd like to do is y prime am y prime a y a y a, and then we will have our solved center caps. Our solved center edges. And the algorithm is 56 moves, but we'll get through it. So we're going to do y prime am. So y prime u r dl ul dl prime ul prime dl dr ur prime dr prime dl dr prime dl prime dr dl prime z2. So the algorithm goes y prime am, y prime a. So we're going to do a, which goes ul prime, dr prime, ur prime, dr, ur, dr prime, dl prime, ul, dl, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, dr prime, dr z2. And then remember it goes y prime am, y prime a, y, and then we're going to do a again. A goes ul prime, dr prime, ur prime, dr, ur, dr prime, dl prime, ul, dl, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, dr, z2, and then the last step is to do y, and then we will swap these two with these two using a again. So ul prime, dr prime, ur prime, dr, ur, dr prime, dl prime, ul, dl, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, dr, z2, and you can see that we have solved all of the polar edges. So there's one algorithm I have missed in the first part of this video, and that is the algorithm B, which will swap this triangle, which will swap this polar edge with this polar edge, and this polar edge with this polar edge. B goes ul prime, ur prime, dr, ur, dr prime, ur, ul, dl prime, ul, dl, ul prime, ur prime, z2. The next step is to solve each of the large edges. We will use one algorithm to cycle the edges, and we can use the algorithm multiple times to flip two of the edges, and then we'll use another sequence to flip one of the edges. So let's see. The algorithm that we will use to cycle the edges will cycle this edge to this edge to this edge. So it goes from right to left to back. And the algorithm, which we will call C, goes ul prime, ur, ul, ur prime, dr prime, ur prime, dr, ur, y, dl, dr prime, dl prime, dr. Now you can see that we have the center, we have the large edges solved in the correct positions, but we have one big edge. So before I demonstrate how to solve one big edge and how to flip it, we'll just let's flip two edges for demonstration. And one way to do that is to use the algorithm C again. So what we're going to do is C, Z2, C, Z2. Remember that Z2 is a rotation along this axis here. So let's try it out. CZ2, CZ2 will flip this edge on the left and this edge on the back. And it goes as follows: UL prime, UR, UL, UR prime, DR prime, UR prime, DR, UR, Y, DL, DR prime, DL prime, DR, Y prime. We'll do a Z2, and then we'll do C again. So UL prime, UR, UL, UR prime, DR prime, UR prime, DR, UR, Y, DL, DR prime, DL prime, DR, Y prime. And you can see now that we have flipped these two edges here. This one is flipped correctly, but this one still is flipped incorrectly. So what we're going to have to do is the single big edge flip, which is the algorithm AAMB. These algorithms have been in the first step where you cycle the polar edges. And what we're going to do is essentially it won't affect the polar edges, because we'll swap these two and these two, and then we'll swap these two back and swap these two, and then we'll swap this one with this one and this one with this one, so that all the polar edges are in the correct positions again, and this back edge will be flipped because we've done a 2-2 cycle 3 times. Here goes UL prime, DR prime, UR prime, DR, UR, DR prime, DL prime, UL, DL, DR prime, DL, DR, DL prime, DR, Z2, AM goes UR, DL, UL, DL prime, UL prime, DL, DR, UR prime, DR prime, DL, DR prime, DL prime, DR, DL prime, Z2, and B goes UL prime, UR prime, DR, UR, DR prime, UR prime, UR, UL, DL prime, UL, DL, UL prime, UR prime. And as you can see, each of the 3 large edges are flipped correctly, which is great. Now we have to cycle the corners into their correct positions. And for this step, we'll use one of your favorite algorithms probably. It's a very famous algorithm. It's called sledgehammer. So if we do a sledgehammer with the UL and DR faces, we'll get a 3 cycle of this edge to this edge to this edge, essentially left to middle to right. So let's cycle it. UL prime, DR prime, UL, DR. This isn't really in the correct position, so we'll just do it again. Okay, so now all the corners are in the correct positions, but they may be rotated. So for this one, you have to rotate two corners. So the algorithm that I have will flip to the edges and they will rotate them counterclockwise. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to do both of those algorithms. To flip the middle edge and the left edge, we're going to do ul prime, dr prime, ul, dr, and then we're going to do it on the opposite side, ur, dl, ur prime, dl prime. And now you see that we have to rotate each of them. We have to rotate this one counterclockwise and this one clockwise. Essentially, we have to bring this side up and this side up. And there's another 8-move algorithm for that. It's really easy. ul prime, dr prime, ul, dr, do y, then do it in the mirror. So ur, dl, ur prime, dl prime. And there you go. Each of the corners are correctly positioned and rotated. Now, the penultimate step is to place the triangles on the correct side of the puzzle. As you can see, some of the triangles don't belong on this side of the puzzle. See, the yellow, blue, and red are on the opposite side. So we're going to have to get them to the correct side. There are 2 algorithms and there are backwards variations for this. And they're each 18 moves. So let's find one that we can do. We can do a 3-cycle of these 3 triangles, which, yes, this can help. So let's do a 3-cycle from here to here to here. So we're going to do ul prime, dr prime, ul, dr, and then we're going to do dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, ul prime, dr, ur prime, dr prime, ur, ul, and we're going to reverse the first 4 moves, so dr prime, ul prime, dr, ul. And as you can see, all 3 of these triangles are on the correct side of the puzzle. Let's do this. Let's do the same with these 3 corners, these 3 triangles here. So this triangle to this triangle to this triangle. ur, dl, ur prime, dl prime, and then we'll do ur, ul, dl prime, ul prime, dl, ur prime, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, and then we'll reverse the first 4 moves, so we'll have dl, ur, dl prime, ur prime. And you can see we only have 2 corners on the incorrect face for this side. So let's see which ones we can put on. So since this one's on the left and these 2 are already on the correct side, we'll have to use one of the cycles in the next step to bring one of these corners to one of these 2 positions. So I see that we can bring this triangle here. We'll cycle this triangle to this triangle to this triangle using a variation of that algorithm. These are all variations of the algorithms that I am showing you. So we're going to do ur, dl, ur prime, dl prime, Then we're going to do dl dr prime, dl prime dr, ur, dl prime, ul, dl, ul prime, ur prime, and we're going to reverse the first four moves. So we're going to do dl, ur, dl prime, ur prime. I can see that we can also get, we'll do the reverse of that sequence to get this one to this one to this one here. And we can do ur, dl, ur prime, dl prime. Then we'll do ur, ul, dl prime, ul prime, dl, ur prime, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, and we're going to reverse the first four moves, so dl, ur, dl prime, ur prime. And you can see we have to just get this blue triangle up here. So we're gonna do the same algorithm. ur, dl, ur prime, dl prime, ur, ul, dl prime, ul prime, dl, ur prime, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, and then we're going to reverse the first four moves, so dl, ur, dl prime, ur prime. And you can see now that every triangle is on the correct side. So now it's just a matter of cycling these triangles into their correct positions. So the algorithms are essentially the same. They're just without the 8 moves, without the 4 moves in the beginning and the 4 moves at the end. So how we will do this is, let's start with solving this side. Let's cycle this triangle to this triangle to this triangle. And how we're going to do it is ur, ul, dl prime, ul prime, dl, ur prime, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime. And then you can see it's recycled these pieces. Oh, no, it'd actually be the exact same thing as what we just did. So ur, ul, dl prime, ul prime, dl, ur prime, dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime. You can see our yellow is right here. So we're going to do another cycle that will go from here to here to here on the top. And that will go ul prime, ur prime, dr, ur, dr prime, ul, dl, dr prime, dl prime, dr. You can see the yellow side is completely solved. And let's do the remaining sides. So let's cycle here to here to here. I don't think it matters which way you do it, but I'd rather show you the reverse case of what we just did. So I'm going to cycle from here to here to here. And the way to do that is by doing dr prime, dl, dr, dl prime, ul prime, dr, UR prime, DR prime, UR, UL. And then you can see we just got to cycle this piece to here and put this piece in the blue spot. And we can do this using one of the other algorithms again. We're going to cycle this piece to this piece to this piece. So we're going to do UR, UL, DL prime, UL prime, DL, UR prime, DR prime, DL, DR, DL prime. And then you can see that the first side of the More Madness puzzle is solved. So we're going to move on to the second side. It is mainly the same algorithms that we've been using. So for the first one, I like to cycle here to here to here. And we're going to be doing UL prime, UR prime, DR, UR, DR prime, UL prime, UL, DL, DR prime, DL prime, DR, and we've gotten the orange ones in the right place. And then for the last three cycle, we'll cycle this edge, this triangle here to here to here. And the way to do that is the reverse of what we just did. So DR prime, DL, GR, DL prime, UL prime, DR, UR prime, DR prime, UR, UL. And as you can see, we've solved the More Madness puzzle. If you'd like, you can find a way to swap these two pieces so that they are upright, but I don't really feel like doing that. So, yep, there it is. More Madness has been solved.